everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make what I'm calling a twisted inset beaded tennis bracelet. And there's two versions of it. I'm going to show you how to make this rose gold version. And I had started out with this particular bracelet right here, and it came from the previous tutorial that I made. It starts the exact same way with making this chain that goes along the back, but I thought, wouldn't it be nice to make one with the beads, the round beads, being kind of inset and encased in another layer. So I went with this particular design here first, and you'll notice when we get to the second step in the tutorial that you'll be adding 8 beads to each side as you go around this rose gold version. This first version, I only added 6 beads going around each side, and it's very nice, don't get me wrong, I really like it, but I did find that I think it needed more going around each side. You'll have to make that decision for yourself, but the rose gold one, it has a couple more beads on either side, so it's a little bit more of an open look. This one, I did end up stitching it nice and tight, so everything did come together. But I did find that it could have used a couple more beads just to kind of fill in some of the gaps if you look really, really close. So that's why I went with 8. You'll have to see what works for you. I would definitely suggest doing at least 7 seed beads on each side when you get to that step. But, just play around with it with your beads and see what you like best and what feels best for you. So thanks for joining me on this tutorial, and let's get started. For this tutorial, you will need the following items: size 11/0 seed beads. I use the color Toho Sweet Blush Galvanized Permafinish. You will need 54 4mm bicones, 9 6mm round beads, and then a toggle clasp or a clasp of your choice, split or jump rings, a beading needle such as size 10, 8 feet of fire line or your desired beading thread, and finally a pair of scissors, and you may want to have a set of jewelry pliers just in case. To begin our bracelet, we're first going to work on this back portion. So not the portion that you can see here with the top where you can see the full round beads, but this bottom portion is where we're going to start, where you can see this chain right here, and it's going to be a matter of creating some larger rectangles and then these little rectangles, a larger rectangle, and so on until we complete the chain. And to get a 7-inch bracelet, we're going to be completing about 9 of the larger links. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rounds. And if you want to make your bracelet bigger, feel free to do so. I found that with the size beads that I'm using, that about 9 of the larger links with these round beads makes about a 7-inch bracelet. The first thing we need to do is pick up one of our bicones, 3 11/0 seed beads, 1 bicone, 1 seed bead, 1 bicone, 3 11/0 seed beads, 1 more bicone, and 1 more seed bead. And this is what is going to get us started. We're going to be creating a loop with these beads. So go ahead and pull them down till you reach about between a 5 or 6 inch tail, whatever you're comfortable with, because you're going to be weaving this tail back into your bracelet when you're done, and that's just going to add some extra strength. That way you're not just knotting it and then cutting it right at the knot. So we have our beads strung all the way to the end, leaving a tail that you're comfortable with, And at this point you're going to tie a knot, leaving that tail intact. And it's going to form a loop. Now don't pull too hard or your beads are going to find their way into your knot, but hold it there and tie so that it's all set in place and you end up with a loop of beads in the order that we just strung them. And it should look something like this. And this is what is going to be the very beginning of our bracelet. And I'm going to go ahead and tie this 2 more times so that our loop is on there and our string is nice and tight and I don't have to worry about it going anywhere. Okay. So after you have your first loop, you want to reinforce that loop. So you want to go through all the beads again, one more time, just like that. Okay. And you can just do a few beads at a time if you want to. It's much easier to do it that way. Okay, and we're actually going to keep going past the knot that we made. So we want to continue past the knot, going through the next bicone, through the next 3 seed beads, through another bicone, and through the other seed bead on the opposite end of where our knot is. And pull nice and tight like that. Okay, so I'm going to set this down and show you what we're going to be working on after that, which is we are going to be making this little small link that's going to join another larger link. And what we need to do is we need to string on 5 more 11-0 seed beads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go back around through that top seed bead that we're coming out of now. So grab your loop and string on 5 more seed beads. Okay, just like that. And then you can see we're coming out of this end of our top seed bead here, and we want to go through the opposite end, and that is going to form a small loop with these seed beads. Working with a lot of string here, so I just have to keep pulling till we get to the end. So you have your small loop, and you want to reinforce that small loop. So go through all those seed beads that you just put on, and that's just going to make it even stronger and keep everything in place better for you. Keep going through that same seed bead you started in at the top of that other link, and then you should have something like this, and we're going to go through the next 1, 2, 3 seed beads. So we want to come out of this seed bead that's right at the top to continue our pattern. Okay, so we're coming out of this seed bead here, and we're going to make another one of these bigger links. So we want to add another bicone, three seed beads, a bicone, 1 seed bead, a bicone, 3 more seed beads, and then finally one more bicone. So this is what you'll have on your needle. And you're coming out of this top seed bead here, and we want to go in through the other side of that same one and pull. Alright, so you should have something that looks like this with two large loops connected with a small loop, just like that. And again, we're going to go through that loop that we just created, and that's going to make it stronger and reinforce it. So go through all those beads again. And take your time. I know you're working with a lot of thread in the beginning. It gets a little easier as the piece goes on. Your thread gets a little shorter. So just take your time and watch your thread so that it's not knotting up on you. Okay. We're going to go back through the seed bead we started in. And just like we did for that first large link, we want to end at this seed bead here, right at the top. So continue going through your next bicone, 3 seed beads, the next bicone, and end coming out of this seed bead at the top. Okay, so we're coming out of this top seed bead, and just like we did down here, we're going to be adding on 5 seed beads to our needle, and then we're going to come right back through the seed bead that we are coming out of right now. So let's string on 5 more seed beads. Okay, we got those, and then we're going to go right through that top seed bead that we're already coming out of to create our little loop, just like we did previously. Okay, going through just like that. And again, you'll want to go through all those beads to reinforce them, and you'll want to be coming out of this top seed bead when you're done. And you're going to continue the same pattern until you've made 9 of these large links, and that's if you want a 7-inch bracelet. And we'll meet back here and continue on. Okay everyone, so we're back, and you should have your full bottom chain already complete. And at this point we are ready to add our loops that will hold our jump ring or split ring or your clasp. So let's go ahead and string on 9 seed beads to get our loop on the end. Okay, so 9 seed beads, and to make it a little easier, you might want to go ahead and add your split ring or your jump ring at this point. That way it'll be in place and you don't have to do it later. So I'm going to do that. I added my split ring, and we're coming out of this seed bead here on this end, and we are going to go through that same seed bead and make our final loop on that side, just like that. And then we want to reinforce this loop definitely at least 3 times. So go around that loop and get it nice and tight and reinforced, because that's where most of the pulling for this bracelet will occur, is at the ends. So you want to go through those several times so it's really strong. Okay, so we'll say I went through it 3 times, and now you can see we definitely need to add our 6mm rounds. So after you've gone through and reinforced your final loop, and you're coming out of this seed bead right here, you are going to go through the next bicone. Just any bicone that's off to the side will be fine, either one. Okay. And then pick up a 6mm round. You can see where we're coming out right there out of this bicone. And we want to go through this bicone right here on the opposite side. Okay, so go through that bicone on the opposite side. And pop your 6mm round in place as you tighten up your string, just like that. Okay, so your 6mm round should sit up a little bit above the other beads, which is what you want. Okay, and then go through the next 3 seed beads on either side, either this side or this side, but ultimately you want to get to this other bicone on the next large chain to get to where you can add your next 6mm bead. So I'm coming out of here, and I'm going to go around, just follow the thread path. Go through these 2 first. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to go through that one there. I'm going to go through this bicone that's off to the side. And again, whichever one you get to that follows that thread path is fine on either side. Okay. Add your next 6mm round and go through this bicone on the opposite side. Now I am not worrying about reinforcing it too much at this point, because we are going to be going back through to do our top portion of this chain. And at that point we can do some reinforcing and go through these beads again, especially after we do that chain. If you have more thread on your needle, if you have extra thread, you can go through all these beads again as much as you want to make your work stronger. And that's definitely something I would suggest you do, because you hate putting in all this work and time and materials for your jewelry to break. That's just sad. Okay, so you can see that I did the same thing. I followed that same thread path. I went through those seed beads. I'm coming out of this top seed bead on this next large link in our chain, going through the next bicone off to the side, like that. And then I'm picking up another 6mm, just like I did before those 2 times, going through the opposite side, through the opposite bicone there. And just gonna pull the thread so that our 6mm bead pops into place. And this one wanted to go underneath, so put it back on the top there. Yep, so just make sure all your 6mm beads, they are popping in place on the same side. So make sure they're all sticking up on either one side or the other. And continue to pull your work as tight as reasonable as you go through. That way none of them will be hanging. They'll be nice and secure. So follow these steps all the way till you get to the very last link and you've put your last 6mm bead in place, and then we'll meet back here and we'll make our loop along the other side and continue our pattern. Okay guys, so you're at the other end of your bracelet. You have all of your 6mm round beads on your chain and you're ready to put on your final loop on this other side. So we want to be coming out of this seed bead on the very end, and just like we did on the other side, you're going to string on 9 seed beads and your other jump ring or split ring or the other end of your clasp, whatever you decide to do to end your piece. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. I'm going to put on my other split ring just like that, so you can see what I have on my needle. And then we're coming out of this seed bead here, so we're going to go through the opposite side, creating a loop. And our split ring, if you do it this way, is already in place, which makes it just a little bit easier. Takes out that step at the end when you're trying to attach your clasps. And so you'll go through this loop again, I would suggest 3 times to make sure it's nice and strong. So we're going to go through that. Okay. And then when you've done that, come back out through that same seed bead that you started that loop in, that butts up against that large link of the chain, just like that. Okay, so string on 1 seed bead, 1 bicone, and then 8 seed beads. And then go through this seed bead right here that starts that smaller chain that's at the opposite end of the large chain. And then as you're pulling it, have it sit right on the top of that first chain that you made. So it should look something like that. Okay. And then coming out of here at the opposite end, you're going to string on 1 seed bead, 1 bicone, and 8 more seed beads. Okay. And you're going to come back through that bottom seed bead where you started the process. And then pull that tight so that it's also sitting on the top of the other chain. but next to that 6mm round bead, and pull it nice and tight. So with your thread coming out of this seed bead right here, that's right at the base of your loop on the end of your bracelet, which is where you started the top section on, you're going to continue through the bicone next to it, and again this is on the base chain layer, and you're making your way down to this portion of the bracelet here. So you went through the bicone, through the next 3 seed beads, and then continue on through the next bicone, and make sure your work is pulled nice and tight, and go through this seed bead that's right here, the one at the base of the first large link in your chain. Okay, so what you've done is you've wrapped that 6mm bead in another layer, and then you went around the base on one side, and you're coming out this top bead of this next smaller link of the chain. Okay, and then at this point, because we want to make sure that it's got a little more depth to it, go ahead and string on 2 more seed beads, and you're coming out of this end of this top seed bead here on this little link. We're going to go through the opposite seed bead in the other direction with 2 seed beads on our string, and those are going to sit right on top. So sit those right up there. Okay. Just like that. Then you're going to follow the same steps. So we will be stringing on 1 seed bead, 1 bicone, and then 8 more seed beads. Just like that. And we're coming out of this bead here. And so we are going to be going through the opposite side, that seed bead all the way on the other end of that large link, going through the opposite direction. And I just lost some beads, so let me put those back on. That happens. Okay, so going through the opposite side, down that seed bead there. Okay, so that's our next side popped into place, and we're coming out of this seed bead down here, so we're going to string on 1 seed bead, another bicone, and then 8 more seed beads. Okay, and we're going right around the other side of this round bead, and we want to go back through that top seed bead that's on the bottom level where we started this process on this particular link. And this is just going to wrap around the other side. So pop it right into place there and pull it nice and tight. And both of those sides should be surrounding your next round bead. Okay, and then since you're finished with that section, you're going to be on the part now where you're going to go through the bottom side to get you to the next link to work on. So follow the thread path on the bottom, going around that side that you're on. And pull everything nice and tight. And then come through that very bottom seed bead where you're working. Okay. I'm going to set it down so I can get everything in place before I pull it tighter. Okay. And these sides will be a little bit loose at first. We're going to be going back through and basically tacking them down to these 6mm beads. So don't worry if it seems a little loose at this point. Alright, so just like we did before, we're coming out of this seed bead right here, and we want to add on 2 seed beads and pop it right in place at the top here of the seed bead on the opposite side. So we're coming out this way, and we're going to go through this side of the seed bead on the opposite end, just like that. Okay, so finish this pattern all the way till you get to the end. Do one more with you. We're coming out of this seed bead here at the top of one of the large links. So we're adding 1 seed bead, 1 bicone, and 8 more seed beads. Okay, so let's meet back here when you get to this end of your bracelet. Okay guys, so you've made it to the end of your bracelet. You've done the top row of your chain and should be coming out of this seed bead right here at the base of the loop on the bottom level. And what we're going to do now is just finish it up by tacking down your top level of chain to the 6mm rounds, and it's just going to help reinforce the whole bracelet and bring it all together. Okay guys, so coming out of this seed bead here at the very base of your loop, we're just going to tie everything together, and you want to go up through this seed bead here that you get to right next to your bicone on the side. And you're going to attach bicone to round to bicone. What I mean by that is you're coming out of this bicone here, you're going to be going through your 6mm bead. We're going to go through this end. And then go through your bicone on the opposite side, facing this way so that you're going down through the rest of your bracelet in that direction. Okay, go through the next seed bead next to that bicone, as well as the 2 seed beads that are on the top of that small link in the chain. Then go through the next seed bead and that first bicone that you get to. Go through your 6mm bead. Kind of pull everything nice and snug. Go through the next bicone on the opposite side. Like that. Then go through that next seed bead and the 2 seed beads that are on the top of the next small chain. Right there. Okay. Go through the next seed bead and bicone. And then go through your 6mm round. Go through the bicone on the opposite side and the seed bead right after it, headed down your bracelet. Kind of pull everything together nice and snug as you go. And then go through the next 2 seed beads that are on the top of that small link. Go through the next seed bead and bicone that you get to. Through the 6mm. Go through the bicone that's on the opposite side, followed by the seed bead, and then the next 2 seed beads on the top of the small link. And I think you're getting the idea of how we're completing this bracelet. And it's just bringing everything together. It's wrapping those 6mm rounds nicely with the top of that chain, and you're going to continue this until you get to the end of your bracelet, and I'll follow up with you on how to complete it. Alright guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end and you've reinforced the top section to the center rounds, then my suggestion, if you have extra thread like I do, would be to go through as many of the beads as you can one more time, and that will just tighten everything up and everything will come together even better and just reinforce the piece a lot more. And I would also suggest adding several knots as you get into the center section if you're reinforcing it. You know, do a little half hitch knot, keep going, do another one, keep going. Do that multiple times, and that will help to secure your piece. And then when you're done, you can go ahead and add your finishing toggle clasp or whatever clasp you're using. If you find that you need to add a little bit more length, you can always add several more jump rings to the end or split rings, and that will bring you to the very end of this bracelet. Alright guys, so your finished bracelet should look something like this. You can see that I've put the clasp on. Just gonna spin it around so you can see it. And I just want to mention too that when you're reinforcing your bracelet, you might want to reinforce the sides as well. Like these two bicones that are together, you might want to stitch those together, you know, kind of down the bracelet, and that just kind of keeps this top chain more wide open and set in place. After I went through the 6mm rounds to kind of bind everything up, I did stitching from top to bottom. So think about that when you're making your bracelet. You know, that way it kind of just binds everything together. You've done side to side, and then it gives you top to bottom reinforced. So now it's nice and tight, and you have a beautiful bracelet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I appreciate you watching. I'd love to see any of the creations you make from my tutorials on my Facebook page. So if you want to go ahead and post any photos of anything you've made that I've shown you, I would love to see them. And I will see you guys on my next video. Bye! If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would also love for you to follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Etsy. Orchid and Opal Jewelry. Thanks for watching!